Abracadabra, an unpublished work by Bailey A. Osborne. Chapter 6. Mars. As it's so close to Earth, Mars is the planet that humans will most likely step foot on and explore first. Shepard arrived back in Utoko the first Monday of the year. Never had he been away for so long before, and Abra felt his absence keenly. She kept her mind busy with baking and painting and trying to solve the mystery of harmony. When he opened the door to the shop with a big grin on his face, Abra ran over and jumped into his arms. "Happy New Year, Abracadabra," he said with a laugh, spinning her around once, then setting her back down. "Happy New Year, Hocus Pocus." Abra kept her hand on his arm and counted the differences in his countenance that had happened since the last time she had seen him. There were many. He looked happy and rested and calm. "It was so boring without you here. I miss you so much." "Is that why you broke into my house?" he asked, giving her shoulder a playful nudge. "I knew you were clumsy, but I didn't think you'd be that clumsy that you'd leave your things." "My things?" Abra's smile turned into a confused pout. "I didn't have any things. I just wanted to look up pictures of you and Mina." Her smile returned as she teased her friend. Putting a finger to his lips, Shepard's eyes flickered towards the hallway that led to Stellan's office. He jerked his head towards the door, signaling that they should leave before they talked more. Agreeing with a hearty nod, Abra let go of her friend and hurried to pull on her jacket. As she straightened the collar, she glanced at the time. "I have to be back in an hour for my dose," she told her friend. "Okay." Shepard nodded and pushed open the door, shivering at the blast of cold that hit his face. "Let's go to your house. It's closer." Abra linked arms with Shepard and walked quickly. When she glanced up at her friend, she saw him shaking his head while he laughed softly. Tilting her head, she gave him a questioning look. "You. I'm laughing at you." Shepard handed her a gift bag that he had been holding. "Why? Because I snooped online to find pictures of you and your cute girlfriend?" Abra's eyes brightened and she grinned, pleased with herself when Shepard's face went red and his shy smile refused to be erased. "I was curious and I missed you. Besides, you want me to meet her anyway." "No, it's because you snooped on other things too," said Shepard, trying his hardest to sound stern. "Okay, fine. I looked up Stellan and found out that Harmony is my grandmother." Abra lowered her voice and checked over her shoulder to make sure no one had heard her. "I don't want to talk about that yet, because it will make me irritated at you, and I want to enjoy at least 10 minutes of you being back before I get angry." "What about the other thing you looked up?" Shepard also spoke in a low voice. "That's the thing I'm more worried about." "What other thing?" Abra gave him a confused look as she slipped her arm from his and hurried to unlock her front door. Once inside, the friends towed off their shoes and left their jackets on hooks by the door. Leading them into the kitchen, Abra turned on the kettle and found 2 mugs. Shepard sat down in the wooden chair across from Abra's and set something on the table in front of him. "What's that?" Abra asked, busily finding the right tea in her tea box. "Your things that you left at my house," said Shepard. "Do you really not remember having them?" With a quick peek over her shoulder to where the items sat on the table, Abra recognized her birthday journal from Stellan. She let out a sound of recollection and a chuckle. Behind her, she heard Shepard huff and say he knew she had remembered. After choosing the tea and adding the herbs to the boiling water, Abra sat down at the table and reached for the journal. "Thanks for bringing it to me. I would hate to lose it before I even started writing in it." Abra tapped the cover with her fingers for a moment before pushing it to the side. "Tell me about Mina." "Abra." Shepard's eyes were concerned as he stared at her. "Fine, then," Abra said, waving her hands and sitting back in surrender. "We can talk about how I found a picture of Stellan in Harmony. But you better have a good explanation for why you lied to me about this for 6 years." "What explanation do you think I would have?" Shepard asked. "I just do what Stellan tells me to do. He said not to tell you, so I didn't." Abra sighed. She had figured he would say as much. "You didn't bring it up to Stellan?" Shepard asked. "Or Harmony?" Glancing away, Abra shook her head. "You waited for me, because you know you can get me to tell you things." Shepard sounded bothered by the thought. No, that's not why." Abra quickly denied the charge. "At least, I don't think so. I don't even know if I was going to talk about it with you, but you said you wanted to talk about it." "But why didn't you talk about it with Stellan? He's your brother, and he's the one who decided this." "Because I know Stellan lies to me," said Abra. If he's gone this long without telling me, I don't think just asking about it would get me the truth. You could have asked Harmony. I know. Abra paused, and she could feel Shepard's eyes on her. I just didn't want to yet. I was trying to see if I could figure it out on my own. Okay. Shepard looked as if he didn't fully understand Abra's words, but he didn't push for more. But I meant I wanted to talk about the other thing you looked up. For a second, Abra pursed her lips thoughtfully. Then she jumped up to take care of the tea. She poured the drink for her and her friend, then set the kettle back on the stove. When she sat down, she still appeared thoughtful. After giving her a moment more to think, Shepard pulled a picture out of the pocket of his sweatshirt and set it in front of her. Who is this? She asked, picking it up. Wow, he's handsome. You don't know this man? Shepard asked. His eyes narrowed as he leaned across the table to study her reaction. No, I've never seen him. Abra shook her head. And I would remember a face like that. No, you wouldn't, said Shepard. What? Abra laughed at his adamant response, surprised by the hard edge to his words. When he didn't smile back, she set the picture down on the table and swallowed hard. Shepard, what are you talking about? Open your journal. Why? Abra tried to understand why her friend looked like he did, but he gave her no further explanation. Slowly, Abra picked up her journal and opened it. Her eyes went wide when she saw writing on the first page, then the second. 24 pages had been filled already. Looking to her friend for an answer, Abra's eyes smarted with panicked tears. She tried to blink them away and keep her breathing calm, but she didn't know what was happening. Shepard, what's going on? Her voice broke as she pleaded with her friend. It's okay, Abra. Shepard reached across the table to take one of her hands. It's okay. You explained it all in your journal already. What? Abra looked down at the pages and tried to read. Here. Abra's friend flipped to a page that had several narrow pieces of paper sticking out. Read this. What are these? Abra first saw the loose pieces of paper and lifted them out of the book. Receipts? Do you recognize the name? Shepard asked. Zan Kimura. Abra shook her head. No. That's the man in the picture. This is Zan? Abra looked back at the man who she had no memory of meeting. But wait, these receipts are from the shop. Read the entry, Shepard urged. He took a long drink of his tea while he waited for her to finish. After reading the entry that Shepard had pointed out, Abra continued through the last few pages. She said nothing, her eyes moving left to right and back again as she read quickly. The crease between her brows grew, then softened, then grew again. At the end, she looked up. How do you know this is the Zan Kimura that keeps coming to the shop? She asked. There is more than one Zan. Because I know, said Shepard with a heavy sigh. Is this the one I found on Mina's list of friends? Shepard nodded. Do you know him? Abra. Shepard gave her a pleading look. What? Abra stared him down. You brought this to me. You could have kept it, and I would have never remembered. What don't I know, Shepard? Why can't I remember this man? Where did he come from? Why does he come to see me every Thursday? I don't know. Shepard's voice came out loud and frustrated. Not everything. And I can't tell you everything. It would take ages, and it would be too much. What do you mean, too much? Abra snapped. I have a right to know things that concern me. I'm not a child anymore. Stop. Shepard put a hand on the table and took a deep breath. Stop. We both need to calm down. I'll tell you what I know, but we need to be calm. Taking a moment to compose herself, Abra drank her tea and stared at the picture of the man she couldn't remember. Across from her, Shepard looked uncomfortable and nervous, but he drank his tea as well and held his hands to steady them. She looked at the clock on the wall. She had 30 minutes before her next dose. I don't know if I should be telling you this, said Shepard quietly, his eyes focused on the table, not daring to look his friend in the eye. I don't even know if you'll remember this. You don't seem to remember anything that has to do with Zan, so maybe I'm nervous for nothing. Abra held her breath and waited for him to continue. Shepard pressed his lips together and turned his hands into fists as he fought a silent battle with himself. Finally, he let out a yell of frustration and ran his hands through his hair. When he dropped his hands, he looked Abra in the eye. I promised I would take care of you, and in the beginning, not telling you things seemed like the best way to do that. Shepard held her gaze as he spoke in a clear voice. But now, it's different. You feel stuck, and you want to know things you never wanted to know before. It doesn't feel like taking care of you to lie like this. Okay, said Abra quietly. After reading your journal and knowing that Dan has been coming to see you, I think you must have ran into him when you went to Solu. Shepard's brow furrowed. Otherwise, I don't know how he could have found you. Abra's mind went blank. Then she held out a hand to stop her friend from talking. But I never went to Solu, she said. Yes, said Shepard, you did. But Abra went back to her dream. She could barely picture the wet pavement. No, I just dreamed about it when I was sick. Abra, you went to Solu. Shepard took both of her hands in his and forced her to look at him. That's why you got sick. Instantly, Abra snatched her hands away from her friend, as if his touch hurt her. She sat frozen, staring, horrified and terrified. Seconds ticked by, and in 21 minutes she would have to go have her daily dose. Shepard let her take her time to process what he said. How? She managed to say. We don't know. Honest, Abra, I'm not lying. Shepard held up his hands in a show of innocence at Abra's sharp glare in his direction. You were gone when we got back to Utoko. No one knew when you had left or how you had left. Pushing herself away from the table, Abra stood up and began pacing in the kitchen. She remembered the way Stellan had wept and clung to her the night she had snuck into Shepard's to use his laptop. The reaction had seemed startling to Abra, who hadn't left her brother's sight in years. Had she really gone to Solu all on her own and without letting them know? I had been in Solu visiting Mina, and Stellan had to leave for the day, said Shepard as he shared all that he knew. I guess you took your chance and just found a way to stray ya. Abra gave Shepard a questioning look. We found a bus ticket in your coat pocket. You took the bus from Straya. What day? Abra asked. The morning of November 11th. Shepard nodded at the journal. The day after you wrote your first entry. But what? Abra exhaled sharply, frustrated at the lack of answers. Well, didn't you guys ask me about it when I got home? Did I forget it all instantly as soon as I set foot back in the village? Abra, you were sick when you got back here. Shepard's voice quavered. Really sick. Abra stopped her pacing. A knot of consternation grew between her brows as she stood. You were barely conscious when the taxi driver dropped you off. He told us you had been acting like your head was about to split open for the last 15 miles. He almost took you to the hospital because he was so worried about you. I got a taxi home that night? Abra asked. That night? Shepard looked at her. You didn't come back until the next day. That's why we think you got so sick. You missed your dose by half an hour, Abra. It took almost a week just to get your levels back to where they need to be. The weight of Shepard's words registered in her mind. Abra felt her heart begin to pound and her legs go weak. She sunk back into her chair. She pressed her palms together, trying to ground herself in the middle of what felt like the ocean. Taking several deep breaths, she did her best to clear her head. Where did I stay? We don't know. Shepard looked grim. The taxi driver didn't have much to tell us. Said he picked you up outside an apartment building and that the meeting had been prearranged the night before. So, no one knows what I did? Abra asked after several moments of silence. She had 15 minutes before she needed her next dose. I think you ate fish cakes and drank mint tea, said Shepard. That's what you dreamed about. Huh. Abra barely remembered the dream. That's all we have to go off of. Shepard watched his friend carefully. Is it too much? Should I stop? Is this the first time you're telling me this? Abra asked suddenly. Have we had this conversation before? Abra, what? Shepard seemed taken aback by her distrusting words. Why would I lie to you about this? I don't know. Why did you lie to me about my own grandmother? Abra countered. This is different, Abra. I know you're scared because there are so many things you're not remembering right now. I would tell you if we talked about this before. Shepard pulled his phone out of his pocket and tapped on the screen. Here, I'll make a voice message. Today is January 6th, and Abra and I are talking about her trip to Solu for the first time. Abra, say hi. Hi, said Abra, a tiny laugh joining her words. She nodded at her friend. She believed him. As he put his phone back into his pocket, she asked, "What about Sam? You must have found him somehow." Shepard's eyes moved to the printed out photo that lay on the table. Why else would he start showing up here? Just a random stranger? Abra didn't understand. No, Abra, he's not just a random stranger. Abra stared at him, waiting for him to keep going. When he didn't open his mouth again, Abra let out an aggravated sigh and kicked at his feet under the table. Even after she connected with his shin, he kept his eyes on the table and his jaw clenched. "Shepard!" Abra yelled and smacked her hand on the surface of the table. "You can't say that and not explain!" "I was told explicitly by Stellan to never talk about this with you," said Shepard quietly. "When everything happened, in the beginning." "Then you shouldn't have started this, Shepard." Abra crossed her arms over her chest. "You should have kept my journal and these freaking receipts at your house and never reminded me. I would have lived the rest of my life without caring if you had just left this alone." "But he's going to keep coming back." Shepard tapped his finger on the picture of Zan. "He's found you, and he's not going to go away unless you ask him to." "Is it bad that he keeps coming back?" Abra asked. "Is he dangerous? Is he trying to hurt me?" "I don't know, but he clearly knows you can't remember him. He knows, Abra. There's no way he could come back this many times and not catch on." "Okay, but he doesn't seem to mind, so—" "Abra, he's not supposed to be here!" Shepard shouted. "If Stellan catches him, I'm afraid of what he'll do." The force of Shepard's voice shocked Abra, and she sat back in her chair. Neither of them spoke. Sizzling tension filled the air around them as they stared at each other. Abra's next dose would be in 7 minutes. "You need to remember him long enough to tell him to not come back, Abra," said Shepard finally. He stood up and waited for Abra to do so as well. When she didn't move, he let out a quiet sigh and walked around to her side of the table. "Come on, you need your dose. I can't have you getting sick again." Allowing her friend to help her to her feet, Abra softened a bit at the worry in his tone. He helped her with her jacket and let her link arms again to stay warm. All the tension that had built up between them in the kitchen blew away through the streets of Yutoko as they made their way back to the shop. "Thank you for telling me about things." Abra looked up at her friend as they turned the last corner. "I won't tell Stellan what you said." "I know you won't." Shepard tried to smile, but he looked nervous and pale. "I just wish we didn't have to keep so many secrets from you." "Are there a lot?" Abra asked. No words were spoken, but Abra saw the grief on her friend's face and knew. He carried a burden she would never see. Leaning her head against his shoulder for a second, Abra hoped Shepard knew how much she cared about him. "We'll talk more later," said Shepard as they parted ways at the door. "Okay." Abra waited until he turned and crossed the street, jogging a little to warm up. Then her eyes moved to Harmony's living room window. The woman stood by the curtains, a cup of something in her hands. Waving, Abra smiled. Then she turned and walked inside. Beating the clock by a minute, Abra knocked on Stellan's office door and waited for him to invite her in. She tried to smile and chat with her brother to feel better on the inside, but she couldn't look at him without picturing all the things she knew he kept from her. When had the relationship turned into keeping secrets from each other? Probably longer than Abra could remember, she thought to herself. Stellan waited for Abra to roll up her sleeve. The inside of her elbow had gone back to being pale and soft with one pinprick of angry red. As soon as the dose had been administered, Stellan returned back to his work. Abra blinked at how quickly he moved on from her, but he had been like this for some time now. Soon she would be used to it. Returning to the front room of the shop, Abra sat down in her chair, a weight in her chest. In the corner sat her box of treasures. Needing to be comforted, she picked it up and opened the lid. She wished the things had belonged to her when she had been a child, and that when she touched them, she touched precious memories. But she didn't have things from when she had been little. Not many, anyway. On top of all the other things was Abra's latest treasure, a worn-out copy of a children's book called The Little Engine That Could. She pretended the smudged fingerprints came from her. Carefully, she opened the front cover and saw ballpoint pen doodles that Abra claimed as her own. As a small child, perhaps she had dreamed of being a great artist. Surely she had dreamed of that once. Not even Stella knew the answer to what she used to want to be as a child, unless that was a lie. Abra reminded herself with a sigh. Setting the book to the side, Abra found several little plastic figures. They had come in a box of 100, but she had only kept these few. A train conductor with blue eyes, a conjoined boy and girl holding hands, a prince wearing a crown, a white rabbit halfway out of an upside-down top hat. Abra hadn't wanted the farmer, or the queen, or the majestic horse. Carefully, carefully, she set the 4 figures in a row. She didn't understand them, but somehow she needed them. From an old, discarded board game, she had kept a tiny guitar game piece. She placed it next to her figures. The biggest items in her box were the green sweater, the teapot, and a pair of blue football cleats. Did she play sports as a child? She didn't think so. They held no interest for her. Then she thought of Zan. Had he been a friend in the past? Shepard hadn't ever explained their connection. Whatever it was, it kept him coming back for 2 months now. Suddenly, Abra had a thought. Her receipts from Zan's purchases had stopped before Christmas. The shop hadn't been opened the week between Christmas and New Year's, but had he come the week after? Abra had only been at the shop that week to try to lessen the boredom. Her journal had been left at Shepard's house, gone from her memory, so she wouldn't have had anything to remind her about him. I guess the card reader is my only source of information. Abra picked up the small machine and turned it on. Once it beeped, she pressed the button for recent activity. There, on the top line, sat Zan's name. Zan Kimura. Purchase made at 10:45 in the morning for not quite $7. So, you're still coming. She thought back to the grief she had seen on Shepard's face when they walked back to the shop. She thought about how worried he had been about what Stellan would do if he found out Zane had been coming to see her. What had they been to each other in the past that Stellan forbid Shepard to talk about him with her? How come her sickness attacked the memory of that one man and that one man only? Zan and the stars, she thought ruefully. Why them? After sitting and thinking for a while longer, Abra packed her treasures back into her box and returned it to its spot. She looked around the empty shop and felt her spirit sagging. For the first time that she could remember, she hated something. She hated the shop. It meant being broken and abandoned and left alone, left behind. No one wanted her things. No one wanted her. Would she die there one day, her joints rusted together like the locks on the window? The thought made her want to scream. It felt like more than being stuck. It felt like being suffocated. Before Abra could pull out her hair or throw things, the door to the shop opened. "Would you like to go somewhere with me?" the newcomer asked. Abra didn't even think twice. She grabbed her jacket and left.